Hello, my friends. It's your buddy Phil here, project management trainer and coach. Welcome to what I call PMP Exam Tech Camp. Today, we're going to take a look at the tech areas of schedule from both an agile perspective and a predictive perspective. So let's talk about one of the major concerns and fears that people have in the world of agile. It is loss of control. People think that if you do stuff in agile, you don't have a lot of control anymore over the schedule. You don't really have a say in what your job is. Your job is unknown. There's no quality, there's chaos, and nobody's going to plan. Well, that's not true. Let's talk about the concept of planning. When you are in the world of agile, you plan at different levels: strategy level, portfolio level. You plan at the product level, the release level, the iteration level, and even down to the day level. So when you think about schedule management, the way schedule management works in gearing up for the PMP exam is you got to know it organically from different angles. So let's talk about schedule management from the angle of agile. Let's talk about at a very high level. At a super high level, you're going to be planning a product roadmap. You're going to be creating these associations between the releases, the timelines, and marketing, for example. Now, this is at the very high level. Now, going down into lower levels, you would plan at the release level, then at the iteration level. We call this iteration planning. You would then go on down to plan out the iteration, which features are going to be delivered, and which user stories are part of those features. Now, at the sprint planning level, for some teams, you go all the way on down to the task level. And this is the level we typically identify from the world of predictive, the task level, where we break down the tasks into hours. Not every agile team does that. But on top of that, you should understand the concept of estimating at a higher level, talking about the story level. Now, when we estimate at the story level, we use story points. One of the methods we use is planning poker. Planning poker is where the product owner describes a story. Each player selects a card for their estimate, and at the count of 3 or whatever, that card is shown. We get an idea of what that story is, and we look for outliers, we discuss the differences, and we re-estimate until convergence. Now, the other method that is typically used by teams is known as affinity estimating. In affinity estimating, what we do is we take those stories and we put those stories where they belong. So if the stories that we're working on are categorized into small, medium, large, and extra large, then the teams will break down each stack of stories. Let's say I have my stack, you have your stack, someone else has their stack. We've already seeded the board, and that means we've got examples of what small, medium, large, and extra large really are. So there are already stories out there. Now, as you can see, we could also go a step further when we've sorted all of the stories into these categories. And I mean, it's very quick and dirty. It's very fast. And team members simply group items together that are like-sized, and it results in this configuration. Now, when all is said and done, we stand back and then we ask the question, okay, what is blatantly wrong? What don't we agree with? But we're not getting into so much minutia. Close enough is good enough. And this is extremely speedy. Now, on the back end, you got to remember that these SML and XL have points behind them. So when all is said and done, the Scrum Master, for example, could go back in and calculate the actual story points, but we take them away from view. We take them away from view just so that we can focus on the estimating and do it extremely quick. All right. Now you've got an idea of how this is done in the world of Agile, because when all is said and done, you get to the point where you know how many story points you're planning to get done. You would already have had an idea of your velocity if the project has already started. If this is your first sprint, well, from this data, you begin to understand what your velocity is across time. Now, going into the concept of predictive. In the world of predictive, we say schedule management is all about the processes required to manage the timely completion of the project. We have 6 things that happen here. 1, we plan schedule management. 2, we define activities. 3, we sequence the activities. 4, we estimate activity durations. 5, we develop the schedule. Pretty much the schedule is already there when you've done 1 to 4, and we just put a bit more paint on it and we're done. And the final one is to control the schedule. Now, teaching this to people who have not scheduled before could be difficult. It could be hard for them to understand what exactly it entails. So I want to show you really quickly an example of how you would build a schedule in schedule software. And by the time we're done, I'll show you a free scheduling tool that you could use to build a schedule like this. Now, this is Microsoft Project. So assuming we're working on some sort of transformation project. This is the parent task, right? But we're going to list out the things we are thinking of at whatever level, we'll just list them out. So assuming I'm thinking initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closing. So that's my list of tasks. Now I could go a step further and I could insert some subtasks. So now let us go ahead and sequence the activities. So let's indent some of these. Here's planning. Let's indent that. There's executing. Let's indent what's under it. And we can just leave the rest at that level. That's fine for this example. So what we are doing now, we are just putting in some structure. And now for sequencing the activities, we can go further and make everything roll up under transformation. But now we need to put in the predecessors. So we're going to put in a 3 here. The predecessor of 4 is 3. Now we're sequencing. The predecessor of 6 is 4. And we just go from there. Now we have 6 and 7. And this would be 8. And this would be 10. And this could be 11 and 12. And that's the idea. That's sequence activities. So we did define activities, sequence activities. Let's estimate the durations now. Let's just put in some random numbers for all of these. So right here, we are putting in the durations. This is estimate activity durations. Okay, and develop schedule is when you have the start and the finish dates for the schedule. You got the full timeline. We can see that this is 20 days, and that's our schedule. It's that simple. That's how schedule management is. Define the activities, sequence them using predecessors and successors, estimate the duration, and you've got the schedule with those dates in there. You could embellish it. You could add some more information as needed, but that's it. That's schedule management in a nutshell. Now, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this schedule, and I'm just going to call it mock. I'm going to save it somewhere on my desktop. And I'll just say mockup schedule, mockup schedule. So I have mockup schedule on my desktop. Okay, there we go. And what I'm going to do next, like I promised, is show you ProjectLibre. And ProjectLibre is a free version of software that allows you to create schedules just like Microsoft Project. And to be quite honest, it's totally free. Let's go on down to ProjectLibre site. You can download it right there. And after you've downloaded it, it's going to look something like this when you open it. All right. So that's ProjectLibre. I've shown you Microsoft Project, but if you don't have Microsoft Project, you could use ProjectLibre. Now I'm going to open the same file we created in Microsoft Project. I'm going to open it in ProjectLibre. And this I called, I'm going to find out what I called it. Mockup schedule. Going to open up mockup schedule. And there's mockup schedule in ProjectLibre, the same schedule with all the predecessors, all the relationships, all the durations. And it's crazy that it's totally free. Isn't that just so wild? So for those of you that haven't gotten a good handle on scheduling, you don't understand sequencing activities, so on and so forth, you could use ProjectLibre to build your schedule. You could even go in, you could go into resource usage. You could see the same kind of pattern for resource usage as is in Microsoft Project. You could create resources. So let's create some random names, and let's put in some costs. So let's put in some standard rates. So we'll just make them as standard as we can. Let's make them all 55s. All right, now I will go ahead, and you've seen what I've done here in ProjectLibre. I'm going to save it. And when I'm done saving it, because it's exactly the same file, I will close the version that I have in here, and I'm going to reopen it. And there's that same file. And if you go to the resource sheet, there you have it. Those same names, all that same information. Seems like the numbers didn't make it across exactly as 55 for the hour, but you've got it per day. So it multiplied it by 8 to give it per day. But there are ways around that. Okay, and that's pretty much it, my friends. That's how you can use a free software tool such as Libre to give you that same luxury of scheduling. It's absolutely brilliant. Again, Microsoft Project and Libre, totally free software. All right, so let's wrap this up. In closing, you have 6 processes in schedule management. And for your exam, you just need to be familiar with the flow. You don't need to necessarily cram a whole bunch of stuff, but I would advise you to look into what comes out of each process, understand the flow. For example, at this level, knowing that you get the schedule management plan out of planned schedule management is good enough. Knowing that you get the activity list, activity attributes, and a milestone list out of defined activities is good. Understanding that you have your project schedule network diagrams from sequence activities. Understanding that estimate activity duration will give you a basis of estimates, and it will also give you those duration estimates themselves is helpful. And when it comes to the schedule, understanding that when we put all of these things together, we're going to get a schedule baseline, project schedule, project calendars, and schedule data. As far as closing, there's nothing in closing. This is monitoring and controlling. As far as controlling is concerned, well, you're going to get schedule forecasts, but you also get the usual change requests and work performance information. All right, I hope that gave you clarity on scheduling. Now, if you are getting ready for the exam and struggling, especially in the areas of Agile that I covered, going down to agileprinciple.com, we've got a boot camp coming up this Sunday. We're going to cover every single piece of the Agile practice guide. Highly advise you to join. I look forward to seeing you there. You take care, and bye for now.